Hi, I'm David Bennett, and welcome to How Do You Do, the show where I talk to successful people about how they do what they do. And today I'm with Cadence Hira. Cadence Hira is a YouTuber and musician who has built an audience on YouTube talking about music theory, but ultimately through the lens of video games and anime. So today I want to talk to her about how she built her audience and any advice she'd have for other people looking to start a YouTube channel. So Cadence Hira, how do you do?
Pretty good. How do you do, David?
I'm very well, thank you. I became aware of your channel probably about 2 years ago, and quickly sort of fell in love with the sort of content you were doing. But I'm amazed to look back on your channel and see you've sort of been doing this thing for about 5 years or maybe longer. And like a lot of YouTubers, they do it for a long time before they find their format. But it seemed even the videos you made like 5 years ago were in a very similar format, similar quality. So what's the story there? Did it just sort of like one day pick up, or was it a slow, gradual build?
It was a pretty sudden thing, I suppose. It was kind of during the pandemic. I suppose as a lot of people's like things that they start are, but
it's a common backstory at the moment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Pretty much it's kind of like a lot of weird factors that led to it. I was working on some big like project unrelated to YouTube. It was like a composition kind of like gig, and I just completely like destroyed my computer by like spilling water on it.
Okay.
And it was just like a very I don't know, I guess just unfortunate thing that happened, and I just became very like disillusioned with all the composition stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just do something that makes me happy. I spend a lot of my free time just like bothering my friends about like, oh, look at this song. This thing does this thing, which this thing also does. And then at a certain point, they're like, okay, stop. Like, just enough. It's too much. So I've kind of had the idea for a while. I'm like, maybe I should just make videos and kind of just put it out into the world.
But was there a video along the way over the last 5 years that really suddenly reached more people, that, you know, really grew your audience?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I kind of took like a pretty big break in early 2022, I suppose. Just things got busier with my day job and things like that. And then the day job got stressful, and I'm like, I want to make videos again. Like, I need to kind of like just blow off some steam. So I made an Adventure Time video just because like the new series came out, and I'm like, there's some cool things I can talk about with this. So I made a video just kind of willy-nilly for fun, like just expecting kind of nothing to come out of it. Posted that in October-ish of 2023. And then it started like just gradually, it just kept getting views. And then it's kind of like the graph just slowly went like this over the course of like a month. And I'm like, shit, that's like 30,000 views that I haven't like had before, like, you know, I guess ever actually before in the channel. I think I reached like 10K after like a year for one of the videos prior. So I'm like, dang, let me see if I can take another video and see if like, you know, I'll put it out quickly, which was like a month, I guess, per my production schedule. But I put that out, and that one also did really well. So I'm like, shoot, I'll just keep putting out videos, and just, like, it felt very serendipitous for sure. Like I didn't feel like I did anything differently.
Yeah, and as you said, it might have just been the right video at the right time.
Yeah,
but then,
for sure.
Because it got that extra boost of views that you hadn't seen before, it gave you that encouragement to do it again and again. And, you know, I feel like I'm, you know, in a way, I've never stopped that chain of like, I do a video, it gets views, and I think, oh, let's do another one. And then you kind of get on this conveyor belt. So most of your videos are usually on video game music or anime, which I imagine comes from your own personal, you know, tastes and preference. But is there a reason why you haven't done as much on sort of like pop music, rock music, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like really the main thing is kind of just preference. There's a lot of discussion about recorded music, like, that's like on the radio and stuff that, I think like is really good. Obviously like you do a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's cool to see that. Now, like, of course, like 8-bit does a lot of the like video game stuff, and there's, people who are doing a lot of anime stuff, like the Ongaku concept and Gavin Leaper kind of doing a lot of that kind of thing. And I think that's really cool. And I guess I kind of wanted to lean into like more of the, I guess, the stuff that I preferred to, I don't know, I guess like think about when I'm thinking about those kinds of concepts.
Yeah, I think it's important that whatever you're talking about on YouTube, whether it's music or any other any other field, it has to be something you're personally invested in, because it's your passion, your deep understanding that makes the video special. So yeah, even if it's to you something kind of niche, if you love it and you're passionate about it, there'll be other people who love it and are passionate about it as well. And you've proven that, really. And video game music also often has complex things going on. It's often a lot more complex than pop music. And I guess part of that is the nature of how it's music written for a very specific purpose. But also sometimes I think these video game composers were just sort of flexing for no apparent reason with odd meters and just sort of crazy harmonies. And yeah, is there a particular game or soundtrack or anything that you think of with like, man, that's just sort of ridiculous what they wrote for that?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think one franchise that I've done one video about that I want to do more, and I think it's just such like an insane soundtrack just conceptually, is the Splatoon series. I don't know how familiar you are with the Splatoon series.
I'm familiar. I've not really played it, but yeah, I'm not a massive gamer. But
for sure,
yeah. I've heard of it though.
It's really cool. I think you can approach it from kind of so many different angles. There's obviously like so much really cool music theory that I personally latch onto a lot of, like, oh my gosh, these crazy chords that they like talk about like in the lore. They like all of the there's like in-game like musicians and idols that like create the music. And I think that's so cool from like just I guess more of like a world building perspective. But it's cool to see like the music theory is so I guess like intentional, I guess. And of course there's also like all of this kind of like ethno-musicological stuff where it's like each like fish race has like their own real world inspiration. There's like this one character who is like kind of intended to have like this like Middle Eastern kind of like inspiration. So like the music that like she writes and sings like uses like Maham Rast and other like various microtonal things, which I think is just so cool. And it's I don't know, I guess I just love how eclectic but also like really, really intentional that soundtrack is. I mean, I could talk for hours about this.
With your videos, do you have like a long list of ideas that you already are planning, or do you sort of just hear something or think of something and then get into gear with it?
Yeah, I actually have like a gigantic backlog. I think there's definitely some ideas that are more viable than others, or things that I think are like I'm saving for when they're like more relevant. I guess I don't know if you feel that in any way, where it's like, oh, this video would be so good if they released a new song. I could talk about this band, or something like that. Where it's like I really want to talk about them otherwise, but I have like this gigantic list of backlog ideas, both kind of just from years and years of I guess like making like one video a month, but thinking of like 5 ideas like a week. So I just have like so many different things. But also like from like the comment section, there's, I'm sure you're also familiar. Everyone loves to say like, you should do a video on this. And I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. Sometimes I'm just like doing whatever. I'm playing a video game that I have to like pause. I'm like, wait, that's a really weird chord. And then I could talk about that game. Or I'm just like randomly, I don't know, I'm watching a movie, or I'm like in the supermarket and I hear a song and I'm like, that's really weird. And then I write it down and do more research and think about that. Or I don't know, I'm sure you feel just like random bouts of divine inspiration, just like walking around and an entire, like, you see all the connections just like form in the air.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny. Like, so different YouTubers I speak to, some say, oh, I've got a massive list. And like you're saying, and that's also the case for me. I do have a massive list. Others sort of always feel like they're at the end of their list and they don't know what to do next. I think, what you're saying is very reminiscent of what I experienced. I'll be listening to music, yes, perhaps just like kind of out in the wild at the supermarket or something, and then you hear something, and it's those moments where the very fact that it perked your ear when you weren't looking for it is probably an indicator that it's a good idea, because it's something truly interesting. People, if you're the sort of person who has that ability to notice something, and then sort of communicate it to other people, I think you should be a YouTuber, because that's the best thing about YouTube, is people on all of these niche little subject areas bringing other people into the fold, being like, let me show you all the good stuff, and I'll explain it all to you.
For sure. And I think that's like, I really, I don't know, I really kind of like fell in love with the whole music theory YouTuber sphere, because I think, it was nice to kind of see like other people doing the exact same thing, like talking about these concepts that I'm like, I know you just heard this randomly, and like, we had that same kind of type of like just random inspiration. And I think it's just so cool to see that, I guess, like that passion.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amazing that this music theory sphere exists on YouTube, because when I was at uni, in around sort of like 2011, 2012, it didn't seem to exist yet. You had people making educational content about other things like science and history, but people like Adam Neely, Rick Beato hadn't really started doing what they were doing yet. So at that time, although I was trying to get into YouTube when I was at uni, I was writing my dissertation on it, but it didn't occur to me to do what I do now and what you do now. And then finally, I was introduced to Adam Neely's videos about 5 years later, and I thought, I could do that. I could just nerd out about music, and I'm really good at that. And it sounds like you're the same. You were bothering your friends about music theory all the time.
Pretty much.
I was the music theory botherer at uni as well.
Yeah, it's like, I guess it was a little bit different because I guess like my whole uni experience was a few years later, where people were sending me your videos and like Adam Neely and ep.9 music theory all throughout, like my last few years of college, and kind of like in the like barely in the earlier years as well. And just like the same thing, just like nerding out, like, look, there's a video about like the creep chord progression. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know it wasn't this thing.
Well, it's really exciting that, there's now, you're basically like the next generation of music theory tubers. And hopefully that just keeps going on. And, you're now seeing people, your age, you're probably about sort of 10 years younger than me, perhaps. And you and your cohort not only got educated at uni in the kind of conventional manner, but you had people online like myself and Adam Neely and whoever supplementing that. What excites me so much about YouTube as an educational tool, not just for music, but for anything, is that even if you weren't studying music at university, you could get a pretty good education for free just from all of these resources. And people are excited about it. And like you said, they're like showing their friends, and it's just very pure. It's just like, that's what education should be. It shouldn't be so, career focused and transactional. It should be for the love of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of what I tell my students a lot, is just like, I think music theory really is just like pointing at something that makes you happy and being able to connect that to something else and say, look, these things do the same thing. That's really the core, I think, of music theory, really, is, all these silly little names for everything. It's just so we can talk about this thing does the same thing as that thing. Right.
Yes. I think with so many topics and, beyond music as well, the things you're taught at school are almost like this kind of regurgitation of what the school teacher was taught when they were at school. And there's this almost like feedback loop of people just kind of teaching music for the sake of music and kind of completely forgetting why we make up all of these, terms and guidelines in the first place. And it's just sort of taught with the mindset of, well, this is what you have to learn, and this is what we've always learned. But it's like we're taking it back to what it's actually about, which is like, describing music, actual music that's happening and people experience and is living and breathing, rather than just sort of pouring over some sort of like counterpoint. And not to say that I don't like counterpoint, but like there's so much that's neglected in conventional curriculums.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, what I like about like the modern kind of like music theory YouTubers is that we're keeping it very modern, with like the examples very contemporary, which I think should be what music theory is, right? It's like, I think it's, we can't talk about classical stuff to describe, a lot of the contemporary stuff, because music theory is ultimately retrospective, right? We have to look at what's modern to talk about, a lot of concepts that don't necessarily apply anymore or have kind of changed definitions ever so slightly throughout the years. And I think that's great.
Well, it's, I always compare music theory to language, in every way. And for example, language evolves and changes, and we add words to the dictionary. We take words out. The meaning of words change. And if you ignored that and just said, no, this is the way it's always been done, this is the way it should be done, eventually you'd be speaking a completely different language than everyone else around you. So you have to move, and we all accept that with language. But some people just seem to forget that with music, is that music is also moving and evolving and adapting to the times and responding to changes in culture and technology. analyzing even the music of like the Beatles 50 years ago, when the Beatles were actually around, was seen as like, well, why are you analyzing this sort of pop music? But now it's like, well, they're like, you know, bread and butter for learning how to understand theory.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So your channel is sort of, you started your channel around the pandemic, and you sort of had an initial run, and you came back to it, and then that's when it sort of took off more. And now you've fairly recently surpassed 100,000 subscribers. Have you got the silver button yet?
I do. Yeah, it's over. Fantastic. It's over on my desk over there.
Yeah, excellent. And I always feel like that's the point where you feel like a real YouTuber. Do you feel like you're actually a YouTuber now?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's kind of surreal. I mean, sometimes like my friends like post like their, I don't know, like they do like premieres for like their songs, and I'm like in the chat just saying like, oh, you know, like great, or like congrats or something, and I see like a little check mark. It feels like so like conspicuous. I'm like, oh gosh.
The little check mark is funny because if you go into like a live stream,
yeah,
you can just sort of like drop yourself in the comments and be like, everyone's like, oh look, they walk among us. I know,
it's like, oh gosh, but you know, it's definitely, yeah, I feel a little bit more legitimate. But it's nice. It's super. It's fun.
Yeah, I think all YouTubers have a sense of imposter syndrome at first, particularly if they are in the educational space and therefore they're presenting themselves as some sort of authority. But eventually you get to a point where, you know, you think, oh, actually, there's people who are being inspired by me and they'd be copying me, and I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing. So everyone all the way up doesn't feel like they know what they're doing, really. They just sort of get slightly more used to bumbling along. But it's there's definitely moments when I look back and I remember just before I started my channel, sort of dreaming about like making this my job, and it's you have to sort of pinch yourself sometimes and remind yourself, because you're sat in a room looking at a screen, and it's rare that you actually get a real world reminder that like there's actually thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people listening to me chat.
Yeah, I think it's like definitely one of the most I don't know, kind of like it feels very just like incongruous with like how like isolated the job is, with how much like reach there is with like what you're putting out.
And you don't really appear in your videos. It's usually voiceover, right? So you've probably not been recognized out and about yet, or have you?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, it will happen. Obviously, those times are some of the most exciting, because you suddenly realize how real the connection is. And it can be a bit overwhelming at first when some stranger comes up to you and is like, I know who you are. And you're, oh, I don't know who you are, but it's so sort of gratifying to realize like these people are reacting to you the way that you would react to someone that you know, admire and watch online or whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm curious, like, if I may ask, does it happen often to you? Just like you're walking around just the supermarket and someone recognizes you?
It has happened in the supermarket. It happens most commonly at a gig, you know, in a musical environment. It happens. So I went to a gig the other night, and I got spotted 3 times there. And I think the day it happened the most is when I went to see Paul McCartney at the O2 in London. I think it happened over 10 times that night.
It's like your entire demographic is there, like
they're all there,
channel audience.
Yeah, and it's so fun, and you know, it's happened enough now that I've kind of got I'm ready for it, and you almost spot people looking at you, and you're like, yes, you have clocked me.
I'm not ready for it at all. If it ever happens, I'll be so caught off guard.
You've recently surpassed 100,000 subscribers. Are you sort of thinking, I'm in it for the long haul now, I'm going to just keep doing YouTube and just keep growing it and see how far it goes?
Pretty much. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely something that, like, especially my parents keep saying, like, okay, so like, what's the 10-year plan? And I'm like, I don't want to think about that. Like, I'm just going to make videos and see what happens. That's pretty much the goal. I'll see what, you know, if any opportunities come up. Otherwise, I'll consider those too. But YouTube's nice. I mean, I really enjoy what I do. I haven't been I haven't been burnt out yet. It's been a blast, really, every single video. I'm curious for you, having made videos for as long as you've been making videos. Like, do you feel the same way, I guess, like about like you've made like hundreds of videos. How does that feel like, just, I guess, having made so many videos?
I've definitely got into a rhythm of it. I've got much faster at making them. But then sometimes I think there's a level of you can get too used to making them and you sort of churn them out and the quality drops off a bit and you sort of forgot to put the extra care and attention into like really thinking about every element of the video. Burnout definitely can happen. I'm sure, every YouTuber talks about it at some point, but that's usually just a case of like not releasing too much. At times I've released every 5 days. And it's great to see the numbers go up, but it's not sustainable. How often are you uploading at the moment?
Pretty much like once a month. It's a pretty consistent once a month. There's like some times where I have to I guess I have to like just with sponsorships and things like that. I have to put out 2 a month, and like I think those times like maybe the closest I get to burnout, where I'm just working like 8-10 hour days for just like the entire month, just to make sure I can put out the videos. Because I guess are you pretty much also just going entirely solo because you edit your own videos?
I do now. I've gone through different sort of workflows. So at the height of editors, I had 3 editors. But the problem with editors with my style of video, and I guess it would be true with yours as well, is they're so technical and they have to be accurate, sort of from a musical standpoint, that there's only so much an editor can actually do. Like if they can't, I've had editors who can transcribe music, and that's great. So they can do the transcription, and then they can then sort of put all of the annotations in and images and stuff. But even then, I have to give very specific instructions to, okay, at this moment, I want a C major scale on screen, and I want you to point to the 3rd degree. So you wind up giving so much micro management and instruction that it's like, well, I should just do it myself. And that has the advantage of, well, you don't have to pay for it. And you own your own mistakes. So the worst thing that happens with editors, and, I love all my editors and they've all been fantastic, but inevitably there will be little typos or mistakes, or the transcription might be wrong. And I won't notice it because I wasn't the one who personally did it. But then of course I'm the one who is now slapping my name next to it on YouTube, and all the comments are like, actually you got that wrong. And it's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, at least if there's a mistake in a video you edited, which I don't know about you, but for me, there is always at least one mistake.
Yeah.
At least it's your mistake and you can be proud of your mistake.
For sure. And I try to post like a pinned comment or like put it in the description. I'm like, I'm sorry, this note's supposed to be an A, or like for some reason, like this highlight box is in the wrong spot. And I just never noticed on my like 6 passes of watching it before I posted it.
For sure. Both of those things are things I've done. And it's so frustrating because one of the best things about what we do is our material remains online, hopefully for years to come, and can be like a resource. And that's so fulfilling. So it's so frustrating even there's like a little mistake in it.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, if only there was a feature where we could just upload a revised version. But I understand why YouTube doesn't let us do that. It could easily be abused, but it's frustrating.
I know, yes.
Do you ever use the editor tool on YouTube to sort of like cut out segments or blur segments, anything like that?
I've used it a few times. I've never used any like blur. I've used it one time when I got copyright claimed for something that I didn't think I was going to get claimed for, and it took like a few days after it was public. I always try to upload it unlisted to see if anything I can resolve. It was like a week after it was public, and it was getting big, and then it got claimed, and I'm like, dang it! So I have to kind of scrub out they have that new thing where you can like just split the music, and the comments love to talk about like how it sounds so funny and weird, but
so you like leave the voiceover behind, is that?
Yeah. Sometimes I just
not
have,
actually
like,
used that. Does it sort of work?
I'm sure it's gonna keep getting better when I did it, it's very clear when it stops and starts. Like it's a very I think a very like rudimentary stem separator at the moment, so you can hear like the voiceover get kind of crackly.
Yeah,
but
I can imagine that would get better soon. Yeah, all those sort of AI tools are getting good so quick. But yeah, copyright. I was going to ask you about copyright actually. It's the bane of music educators' lives. For anyone who doesn't know, we should be able to use short clips of music, copyrighted music, in our videos because it's educational, and that is what's called fair use. But on YouTube, it can be quite tricky to make that happen. There is a system on YouTube where you can sort of appeal and dispute it, but it can be kind of scary, and like sometimes it seems like your channel is going to get destroyed. How do you typically deal with that? Do you just sort of have a hands off? You're like, oh, you know, screw it, sort of, I don't care, or do you try and avoid it at all costs?
I mean, so I guess it's kind of like an interesting kind of like story that I guess kind of plays into my channel structure, is that I started with, actually, well, just way back in 2020, I just did whatever. I just did music, like just any interesting topic, any like various examples, which I really liked. I mean, it was like I could talk about, I think like constant structure and culture changes, and, you know, here's hip hop, here's video game, here's like a movie or whatever. And it was great. I used so many different examples, and everything just like all across the board, copyright claimed, like, you know, it's like, I'm sure you're very familiar, like 10 claims, one video. And then it's like, oh my gosh. So, you know, I made a template and sent everything. Like 8 of them got, they rescinded the claim, and then 2 of them, like, you know, I could choose to double down, but I was like 500 subscribers, and I'm like, they're going to just nuke my channel. I'm too afraid. So, but I think something that I eventually noticed is that video games pretty much across the board I think I've become kind of aware of some examples that I definitely cannot use, but, pretty across the board, they're kind of okay with it. Probably just because they don't upload it to streaming services, and, probably just isn't in like the content ID system.
I think that's what I've noticed, that with video game music, and I think you're right. It's because it's not released through this sort of conventional channels.
Yeah.
Although sometimes you can, sometimes, as you said, it does get caught.
Yeah, and that's been like, the bane of my existence for sure. Where I'm like, they're like, you know, like here's like the most important song of the video, and then I upload it and it gets claimed. I'm like, I have no recourse. I have to just double down with like an appeal and a dispute, and hope that, you know, I get into like some like email screaming match with UMG, and hope they back down, which, you know, they often don't. So I just have to tank it.
But yeah, it's similar with me, where 90% of my videos are not demonetized, maybe even 95%.
That's pretty good.
Years ago they were, and I sort of had to learn the ropes a bit with how to deal with it. But inevitably there's those videos where they just get utterly sort of hammered by copyright stuff, and, you know, it just, you have to work out, like, am I willing to fight this battle? It's when it has multiple claims on the same video, where you could win one of those disputes, but then there's still 4 more to get through. So the chances of you winning all 5 is quite slim. And theoretically, if you're confident that it's fair use, then you should be able to just like plow through and be like, no, I'm fine. And sometimes I am confident, but most of the times I'm not, because I'm not a lawyer, and no one seems to actually really know how much you can use of a song and it still be fair use. So
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, it's tricky stuff. And you've kind of gotten around that in a few videos. I notice you use like covers that are kind of just, do you find they're just on YouTube, or do you have like a specific list of kind of like cover artists who you like use kind of on the regular?
I find them on YouTube, but I always try and find covers that are really loyal to the original, because I don't want it to sort of,
for sure, kind of
be jarring as a listener. And I try and avoid it if I can, because it is nice to have the real song on there, because that's what I'm actually talking about. But yeah, it is a good little trick to get around the copyright claim system. Another one that I've been using more and more now with all of these AI splitters that are available is splitting out the important bit of the song. Maybe I'm just talking about the vocal or just the guitar, and then not having the rest of it. And that can be enough to trick the copyright system to, you know, it doesn't recognize it anymore. Or even like, I will separate out the vocal, so the original singer is there, but I will then recreate the instrumental. So it's sort of not that jarring to the listener, but it gets through the copyright wall.
For sure. Actually, maybe I should use like splitters more. There's like definitely some like vocal tracks, like video game vocal stuff, where I end up just making an entire, I just like do like a mock up, or maybe just like simple piano stuff if I can get away with it. But that might not be a bad idea. Just like, you know, I can split the vocals and, you know, play some piano.
Yeah, it's really, you know, AI in music is, some elements are absolutely horror, you know, horror worthy. The contemplation of AI created music, but AI tools in music, some of them are just sort of so liberating, like the ability to split any track. And I use it all the time. I even use it, like earlier, actually, I was doing a video on Here Comes the Sun, and there was like an interview clip with Ringo, and underneath, in like as a bed in the original interview, they had Here Comes the Sun just playing in the background. But I thought, well, if that's playing on my video, I'll probably get copyright claims. So I used an AI splitter and just told it to separate the vocals, which it hears as just Ringo's speaking voice. So now I have a version of the interview without any music. It's just like so useful for those sort of applications.
For sure, yeah.
So with your videos, your videos are quite similar in format to mine, where you're talking about specific music theory things, and you've got notation on screen. So I wonder if you encounter some of the same issues, or maybe mistakes I do, where sometimes I've written a whole video concept and script, and I've probably started making the video, and then as I'm then editing the video, I slowly realized that actually the thing I'm talking about, I'm wrong about.
Yeah.
And then I just think, I can't release this. Has that ever happened?
Oh yeah, that has happened so many times, and I'm just like, what do I do? Like, yeah. I'm like 15 minutes into the editing. Like, I've been working on this video, especially I've been working on like the video for like an entire month. I'm like, I don't know what to do. There's been times, thankfully, that I've it hasn't been just like it just destroys the entire video. There's been some times where it's like kind of like my kind of like centerpiece example. I'm like, oh my gosh, it doesn't do what I thought it did. So I have to spend like another few days just doing more research, find something that I can replace that I'm sure you're familiar, to replace the song with, keep the thesis intact, and, no one's any the wiser. There's been times even when just like I've transcribed it, and like, not even like conceptually, I just completely transcribed it incorrectly to like justify the thesis. And I'm just like, wait. And it always happens in the editing, right? It never happens when you're transcribing it. It's like you're looking at it, like the last pass, and it's like, wait, that's wrong.
But better to be the last pass than the first pass once it's gone live.
Yeah.
Because I've had a few videos where I've done the video, and then on releasing it, the comment section has just sort of pushed me a bit, and I've been like, actually, I think I really was overstretching with this one, or maybe I just didn't properly, like this. It's almost there, but I just missed some essential point. So like I did a video on why there's no B sharp or E sharp key on the piano, why there's no black key in those gaps, and I went into the whole sort of history of it, and sort of diving into where even the concept of having black notes came from. But I didn't even really mention the fact that the major scale doesn't have a note between the third and fourth degree, that there is no chromatic tone there. It's a semitone, and between the seventh and eighth degree, which is so elementary that I almost sort of, I did overlook it. And then so many comments were like, well, I don't get it. Like, what are you talking about? And then in the end, the video had been live for about 2 years. And then at the end, I was like, no, these comments keep coming in every week, every month. So I took the video down. I redid it, largely using the same edit, but like adding new sections in, re-released it. And actually that version now has more views than the original did. So although it's painful, if you're imagining your content, well, if you're hoping your content's going to live online for a long time, I think it can be worth putting something down and correcting it. Because if it's a big fundamental mistake, it's just like, I can't sleep at night.
I mean, actually, I think it's very inspiring, actually. I've definitely been afraid to, even like the prospect of doing like just simple re-uploads of like, I post a video for like 6 hours and I messed up like an edit. I'm like, I don't know, if anything was like super egregious, I'll probably have to eventually work on a re-upload. But I mean, there's definitely some things in some of my older videos, even some of my like current ones, where I feel like they're not exactly like future proofed, that if I need to re-upload, I totally can, and I know what I would want to do. So I mean, I'll definitely consider that. That's especially if it's been successful for you.
Yeah, on a few occasions, like re-uploading is a mixed thing, because if you've just released a video and you notice a mistake, I think maybe within the first hour, if you pull it down, you can get away with it. But after that, the problem is so many of your core viewers, the viewers that are most valuable to you, they would have seen the first version. So when you upload the replacement, they won't watch it. And that tells the algorithm, oh, even Cadence's biggest fans don't like this video. It must be awful. And then it gets really stunted. And then sometimes it can recover. I've had to do it sometimes due to copyright strikes, but and they kind of recover, but then you never really know what the full
What it could
potential
have
was
been.
going to be.
Yeah.
But on 3 or 4 occasions, including the one about the E# and the Black Note thing, I've taken down a video maybe about a year or 2 years after initial release and redone it. And I think after that amount of time, you probably now have enough new viewers anyway that to them it's not a re-upload. And as long as you're transparent about the fact that it is a re-upload,
Yeah.
then even people who saw it about a year ago are probably happy to be refreshed on the subject.
Yeah, it's like the director's cut. You get to see
Yeah.
like the deleted scenes.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's actually really interesting.
So the last question I have for you really is, although you're relatively new into your YouTube journey, you've gone over the main bump that everyone struggles with, which is getting more than just your friends and your mum to watch your video. That you have an organic audience and it's growing and it's passionate. What advice would you have for other people starting YouTube channels, getting over that bump, getting organic growth, getting people to watch their videos?
Dang, I mean, I really wish I had like a really profound answer. Like for me, I mean, it really did feel like it just magically just happened one day. And then, I mean, I guess the thing that I did as soon as it started getting just like that one like video where it just kind of all clicked, is I just like from that point forward, I didn't take any breaks. Like it was just one video, per whatever I was able to put out. I think depending on your process and if you have editors and whatever kind of your content is, you can put out even more videos, which might, really help. But I guess kind of just, be aware of what your audience wants. At least for me, like I just spent like so much time looking at metrics and seeing like, what is my retention? Where, like, what are like even the spikes, and like the playhead, you can see like, what are people looking for?
Yeah, for sure. That's
And like,
useful.
and how do I play into that and kind of just like create a brand, which I guess kind of like the second thing I was thinking of is I guess like have a very good like niche or a brand. It doesn't have to be like, the most widely reaching like thing you can possibly think of. But I think as long as you kind of have like a thing that you can have a really good core audience, like you can build that over time is kind of at least like my very personal understanding of at least how my channel grew.
I think the point on finally getting some views, like you said, then making more videos, not just sort of sitting around on your hands, but actually like, following up on it and sort of striking whilst the iron's hot. I think that's so important. I think so many people miss that opportunity where they finally get people's attention and then they either don't upload anything else for an extended period or they upload something completely different. Whereas, you finally found something that people like, a formula that works. You now need to take that formula and do it again. And I think a lot of people don't plan that far ahead when they try getting into YouTube. I think of the analogy of, if someone opened a coffee shop and they're like, I need to sell my first coffee. That's what I need to sell. So they set everything up and, they get the coffee machine and the beans. And finally they get some customers through the door and they sell that first coffee and I did it. And then there's another customer waiting behind him and it's like, oh, I only have enough beans for one coffee.
Yeah.
So sorry guys. And then the queue's gone and they never come back. So like when that queue is waiting by your channel, you need to be ready to deliver. Fantastic. Well, it's been great talking to you, Cadence.
You as well.
Where can people find you on the internet?
Pretty much my channel, Cadence Hira. I don't really, I will be posting more short form content. So if you want to follow me preemptively, on TikTok, maybe on Instagram, you might see some of the early Cadence Hira TikToks. As kind of it's just like a little spoiler for what's going on in 2026 for my channel. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you.